The Farum region, home to the mysterious known energy as Gaia. Then in battle they were able to use our mons to actually bring them to their fullest potential, known as Synergy Burst. There's little to no mystery on it, or how our bonds between our Pokemon actually are capable of enhancing themselves so well in this way. But it makes us curious how our bonds between Pokemon manage to enhance as well in battle. How are we able to win with our favorite teammates, or being able to cope with a loss? There's many ways in this world that you have to be able to know to take a win or take a loss. But overall in the end, learning this big, crucial area, this criteria, makes you understand and becoming a stronger person, and have a stronger bond. How's everyone doing today? My name is Croza7, and today we are doing a showcase? I guess on some Scizor concepts, because I got like some comments from people that were playing Scizor, and they were kind of curious on how to play it. I had one comment that came from me from Gustavo? Am I reading this right? I'm going to feel terrible if I pronounce this wrong. If you're watching this, my apologies sincerely on mispronouncing your name. I am terrible when it comes to names. So, as I was stating earlier, he was just commenting on basically asking how Scizor works. For him being a Charizard main, he was kind of curious on how it works. He tried it out and he was just really confused. So, I'm making this video actually just helping him out how Scizor actually works. So, I guess giving a little bit of background history is that Scizor is a power character that basically has a lot of damage output according to the category, but has limited range and high amounts of durability. But one thing that's a big disadvantage on Scizor's part is that unlike all the characters in its category, Scizor has a really low damage output. If I had to compare it to my main Lucario's damage output is slightly more higher compared to Scizor's. But don't be a little bit scared just because of his low damage output. If you're expecting power characters to be able to dish out a lot of punishment to opponents while taking the punishment, you have to be able to remember that some characters have their own bread and butter on how much punishment they can deal to their opponents with any concepts. Machamp has his bulk ups. Chandelure has its Will-O-Wisp and Hex combo. Many characters have their own bread and butter on how they be able to use their own tech. And for Scizor's case, he has Swords Dance. Swords Dance is a move that allows Scizor to be able to enhance attacks at any given time. It allows him to be able to do much more damage to his opponent while also bringing up his damage output. So basically, it kind of evolves him from a Glass Joe into a Glass Cannon. You just have to be able to learn one important thing. In the beginning of the match, try to see if you can get at least one Swords Dance up. 1 or 2. Don't try to get 2. Don't be greedy, because you can be vulnerable if you can get hit by a Swords Dance by an opponent. Like, Swords Dance is a good move because it allows Scizor to be able to use any of his moves and enhance them in any given way. As you can see, I used Fury Cutter, and thanks to the Swords Dance, I was able to enhance it to do more damage. So, the perks of Swords Dance is that it also is a good means of, like, intimidation. Like, when you ever face an opponent, they want to make sure a Scizor with no swords on their back is, like, basically a dream come true to them. But when you have these swords up on, it kind of makes them a little bit uneasy. Because when you think about it, they don't want to get hit by whatever move that they're going to be throwing at you. Because each move that Scizor can use has new properties. Like as you see for Bullet Punch, without Swords Dance, Bullet Punch is just this attack. But when I add Swords Dance into it, it adds new properties while adding more damage to my opponent. It's really helpful to be able to use this in many situations to actually turn the tide of battle. Because don't try to end up being, I don't need Swords Dance, or you can go in there without using one single Swords Dance. In reality, you have to use them. It's like literally using breaks in Sunny Day. It's completely necessary to be able to get the proper damage output you deserve. Because without the proper damage output, Glass Joe or Scizor would just become a Glass Joe. But when adding all these Swords Dance together, it becomes him into a Glass Cannon. Another good key thing you have to be able to learn too is Scizor is capable of gliding. The main idea why I'm stating that he's able to glide like Charizard in a way is because mostly if I try to end up using his gliding stance in a way, send Scizor flying, I can end up continuing my combo strings, doing more damage. I already showed this also in one of my videos prior to this. I think I called it the basketball strategy, to be honest, because I'm literally bouncing off the ground like a freaking basketball. No, you tell me what this is, because that's why I called it, because I'm literally bouncing my opponent like he's a basketball. The bad thing about it is I can't do the triple dribble. Okay, as I was saying, using his gliding stance is very useful, because there's certain cases like if you want to end up closing the distance with your opponent, like Bullet Punch here with his enhanced attack, to be able to close the distance and to be able to do a lot more punish. It's very helpful for any given situation if Scizor was stuck with a technical fighter. Because basically, like all power characters, they're kind of stumped for words when they try to face a technical fighter that they have to get outzoned. Well, I guess except for Chandelure, since he's technically a power zoner, while everyone else is a power fighter. Okay. Next thing that I want to talk about for Scizor is his running stance. Or technically it's not even his running stance. It's similar to Garchomp's, but I call it the hover stance. The hover stance basically allows Scizor to literally charge your opponent, similar to Garchomp's movements. But this thing has one more additional property that maybe most people don't know about. Maybe some of the pro Pokken players might know about it, but some others maybe do not. So, let me give you a general situation. You have an opponent that's throwing out ranged attacks at you, and he's zoning you out, giving you a hard time to be able to close in the distance. Well, let me show you something that can happen. As you can see, I'm using Scizor's hover dash, and I'm not actually getting hit by ranged attacks. It's because Scizor's hover dash allows me to be capable of closing the distance to my opponents in dual field phase and duel without getting hit by ranged attacks. It makes me kind of immune to them, meaning that I can be able to close the distance against my opponent without the worries of getting punished by light hits, while also being capable of performing punishments if they continue throwing ranged attacks, not knowing that they're not working. It's very useful if you're facing technical fighters, or even any fighter in particular that uses ranged attacks that's trying to keep you out. It's kind of a way that Scizor is basically using to be able to close the distance and to be able to keep up with opponents that are going to keep him out. You can also use his hover dash as well. This actually is a way of basically intimidating your opponent in a way. You can use hover dash in a way in dual phase too. But in psychologically standpoint, it's just kind of a way of fearing your opponent. I actually have a friend that plays Pokken Tournament, name of Tech I think it is. He uses his Scizor in many ways than one, because what he does is that he uses the hover dash in many varieties. He uses hover dash to either grab your opponent or attack them directly, making them think he's going for a grab. It's completely random and it catches you off guard so many times. And this actually works. It only works some of the times. I would not rely so much on that hover dash grab. Try to be a little bit creative. Like instead of going for a hover dash attack, try maybe go for a hover dash U-turn. It catches them completely off guard, thinking that you are going to literally try to grab them or attack them. It's very useful. Like if I had Swords Dance, for example, I can actually use my Hover Dash with Metal Claw to actually stun Scizor when enhancing that move. Another good useful move that is actually very helpful for Scizor's arsenal is Bug Bite. Bug Bite is basically a button combination. After using Bullet Punch, you hit YB, which is the button combination for grab, and it allows them to perform Bug Bite. Bug Bite is basically a specialized move that Scizor can use in Pokken, because everyone else can use it in like the actual game itself. It just basically allows them to be able to A, steal any buffs that your opponent may have, or B, recover any HP that he lost. Like say for example this Mewtwo had a speed buff. I knock him straight in the air, and I take it from him. As you can see now, on my corner of the screen, I have the speed buff. I steal it from him completely. Even though, as you can see right here also, that he has a speed buff again, but that's only because it's in training mode still. This is just basically an example of how it works. I can steal his buffs and regain any health that I lost, while also dealing a lot of damage. It's really helpful with this move too, is that I can use it for many resets. If I knocked an opponent completely to the ground, I can actually go for a wake up grab. It's not really recommended, but I call it basically... Have you ever saw Garchomps using a Sand Tomb reset? This is what they call it. I call it basically the Bug Bite reset. The Bug Bite reset is basically when I'm going to use basically Bullet Punch to fake out my opponent so I can get a free grab off them. Because they thought I was going to be able to continue my pressure, but instead I'm going to reset it and throw them straight in the field phase again. But like I said, the only problem with this tech is that if I threw a technical person or a technical fighter, that's going to reset them so they can be able to zone me out again. So one good thing about it, instead of just going for the Bug Bite tech, go for the Bullet Punch into basically Fury Cutter. Because as you know, you can go straight into Fury Cutter from Bullet Punch. This can be work help for technical fighters that are hoping for basically to be resetted. Try to keep that pressure on them, because every technical fighter kind of hates that happening to them when they don't have enough room to work. Even though some technical fighters such as Aegislash or Darkrai are kind of used to it. It just all depends on how they train or practice. Alright, another thing that actually is very important to know, and I think this might be the last thing that actually has with Scizor, is that as I stated earlier with the Bug Bite cancel, he does have one more Bug Bite, another cancel that he can use. And that is his 5x cancel. Or I think it's 4x, I just can't remember, because if someone can actually send me that paper that tells me all the button combinations, it would actually make my life a whole lot easier instead of trying to figure out which button does. But as I was saying, Scizor can easily cancel out of his 4x at any given time. This can actually help for opponents. They knock them straight to the ground. This is actually a really good Ookie in any given situation. I can fully charge my 4x, thinking that they're going to try to block, I can immediately run up and grab them. It's like basically a really good Ookie that we usually use. It's very helpful against opponents that are reliant on that space, or reliant on basically predicting your every move. Like for example, my main, I usually try to predict my opponent's movements or try to analyze their movements to see how I can be able to punish them. That's why I couldn't really beat Scizor much, because I had to play outside my comfort zone. So in this case, if I had to play a little bit different, since he's going to be playing all out random, that's the initial concept. Scizor's main concept you have to do is use his cancels, Swords Dance, and any ways of randomness to actually catch your opponent completely off guard. It's kind of like playing as Deadpool in Marvel vs. Capcom. You have to play completely out of your own comfort zone and play completely random. Because Scizor's not like, a linear character. He's like a differentiating character. He uses different concepts, different properties that any other average Pokken player would dream of having. Well, maybe I guess Machamp's Dropkick, maybe. Ugh, I'm still having flashbacks to that drop kick. Knocked me out in one hit. Okay, that's enough on me. The last thing I want to talk about is that since he is a power character, one thing I do want to actually explain is that there's one little piece of tech that actually be very helpful when you're using a power character, is that you have to be able to learn to immediately burst in any given situation. Meaning, any given situation you want. You don't have to burst literally in round 3 or round 2 just to close out the bracket. Anytime you feel it's necessary just to win the match. Or even sometimes just to get in your opponent's face and not give them any time to react or breathe. I call that basically the all-out, no-holds-bar. This is basically that I would use my burst. If I win the phase, getting my opponent into the corner, I would continue lying on the pressure until he has hard times being able to react to my new playstyle. But this thing does come at a deadly cost, or at a very punishable cost. Because if I do use my burst, and say for example my opponent isn't afraid of using burst to compensate, that's one of the biggest concepts that could be a big disadvantage. Is that in any given situation, if I use my burst, and my opponent tries to compensate for it, that could be a biggest thing. But it can also be a good advantage, because if they use their burst just to compensate against your attacks, then it kind of ends up winning half the battle, because they won't be able to use their burst next round. But also leads to another bigger concept. There's many people out there that play this game that are completely immune to burst fear. Burst fear is basically when you are afraid of an opponent when they're in burst mode. This is when that if you go into burst mode, they're not going to care. They're not going to care of how much buff you're going to get or how much enhancement you got from that form. They're just going to slap you silly. Some players that actually play this game competitively have that same concept. For example, when I was watching against I would see people like Alistair or Roxa the Savage. When they see an opponent that's burst in your face, they kind of have little to no fear against facing an opponent that literally has burst and they don't. It's because they literally have a way to compensate or to be able to react to basically them having a much more significant advantage. That kind of wraps everything up. You just have to remember the important thing when using burst, you just have to be very careful on it when doing it really early in the game. Because there's many opponents that are afraid of your burst. But there's some that don't care about it and will just slap you silly like it's nothing to them. Just be careful on the fly. But the overall summary on Scizor is that in the beginning of the game, try to get a sword stance or 2 off. Don't get greedy and get 2. Just try to get 1 as much as you can. Make sure you try to learn to use that hover stance. If you can use that hover stance, it'll help you a lot against ranged fighters that would be able to keep you at a distance. It would help you close that distance. And always make sure to use Scizor enhanced attacks. Make sure you know how to use them. And use all the cancels you can find. Use Scizor's 4X, like 4X into a grab or 4X into a U-turn. I'm just trying to think of the moves at the top of my head right now. But the key thing to Scizor's victory is patience. Since Scizor does indeed have the lowest damage output, you have to literally be patient on what strikes you can end up, opportunities you can take. Because since he has the lowest damage output in the game, you have to be able to be careful on how much punishment you can take. Yes, Scizor is built like a tank, but he does have a limit on how much he can take. So you have to be able to learn how much you can dish out to an opponent and how much you can take. Support-wise, to be honest, you can run any type of support with Scizor, but the best Scizor supports that I usually run are the ones I still have in my previous video, which is Vismagius and Latios. Because the main reason why is that I want to continue using that pressure and giving them little to no options or breathing rooms to react. Because if they have little to no chance or any options to react to the situation, then I can simply just punish them left and right for any type of panic reactions. Which kind of actually wraps up on everything we need to know for Scizor. So I guess before I go out with I'm gonna go make sure this video will go out with a bang. So with that all unsaid, my name's Scizor, and I will catch you guys next time. Without that said and done, take me out of here, Scizor. Oh, actually, one thing I forgot. Before I go, I'm going to also leave this video for, like I said, for anybody that does want to know Scizor. I actually went through a couple matches with Scizor to reacquaint on his playstyle. So you are going to expect maybe a ranked video of me using Scizor. I just don't know when, because I'm just trying to get everything ready, because it's almost the half point of my semester. I'm almost this close to actually getting the summer break. Actually, technically my last summer before I have full-time clinical rotations. So, that's said and done. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of it. This is just basically a teaser for basically what's to come with Scizor. With that said and done, enjoy the rest of the match.